Hey everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Bishop Lafer and I am the Marketing Developer Analyst here at IDX Broker. I am joined by Bao Kim, who's another marketing developer. He is fielding the questions in the questions box. So if you do have a question as we're going along, feel free to throw it into the questions box and we will get to it as quickly as we can. And also we'll leave time at the end to make sure that we get everybody's questions as well. So without further ado, I guess we'll go ahead and get started. Today we're here to talk about Google Tag Manager, the basics, and how to use it with IDX Broker. First, we'll go over a quick introduction to what Google Tag Manager is, or GTM for abbreviation. We'll cover what a tag is, some example uses of tags, the components of GTM, and then I'll actually do like a live demo and show you how to create a Tag Manager account and install it onto your website via IDX Broker middleware. And then I've got some useful links at the end, and we'll cover any questions that anybody might have at the very end as well. So, introduction to Google Tag Manager. Tag Manager is an easy and efficient tagging system made for businesses of all sizes to manage analytics and marketing tags faster. Using Tag Manager requires less dev time, although you might need your dev to install Tag Manager initially. Once it's installed, then you can create, edit, and delete tags via the Tag Manager GUI without having to write any code. So what is a tag? A tag is a snippet of code which are added to a site to collect information and send it to third parties being Facebook, for instance. So you can use Tag Manager to implement a Facebook pixel. You can use Tag Manager to send information to Google Analytics, or if there's another third party, you can use it to send to Google Ads. And there's a lot of other, for instance, if you're using like click tracking software and stuff like that, you can implement all of those things using Tag Manager as well. Some example uses of tags would be to track how people arrive at your site. So like what's the source medium of your traffic? That would be done through Google Analytics. You can track form submissions using a custom event in Google Analytics. You can build remarketing lists so that you can show ads to users who have already visited your site, either on Facebook or in Google Ads. You can track file downloads and you can track clicks on specific links. So the components of Google Tag Manager, the main component is the Google Tag Manager container, which is a snippet, or the snippet is a small piece of JavaScript and non-JavaScript code that you paste into your pages, which holds all the tags for your site. Again, a tag is a snippet of code that's added to your site in order to collect information and send it to a third party. A trigger is the specific criteria necessary for firing a tag. So an example of a trigger would be a page load on your marketing site or a specific link click. Variables and constants contain the values that a trigger needs to evaluate to know if it should fire. So if you only want to fire page views on specific pages, then you need to set a variable that says this page URL is equal to this, and then if the tag manager loads on that page, then it knows to fire that specific tag. Or for instance, if you're trying to send custom dimensions into Google Analytics, then you have a constant for that custom dimension, and then you give that constant a value and send it into Google Analytics. And you also have to set up that constant in Analytics so that it knows when it's receiving like a constant number of 1 that value coming from Tag Manager is the same as what Analytics is expecting for it to be as a number 1. And then the data layer is a JavaScript object that stores the information tags need to fire separate from the rest of your site's code. I know that sounds like a lot and it's kind of complicated, but in reality, Tag Manager is actually really easy to use. So we'll go ahead and just switch over and I'll show you what it looks like. To create an account, you'll go to tagmanager.google.com. And if you already have a Google account, then this is what it looks like when you land here. And you'll want to create a new account, and we'll just say Bishop's Test Account. Country is the United States. You can share Google with share data with Google and others if you want to. You don't necessarily have to. It's up to you. My site name is going to be bishopstestsite.com, and I want to use the web container because this is going into a web app. So I'll have to accept the terms. And then once you've created the account, it gives you these two snippets on how to install Tag Manager. So we'll copy this and we'll come over to IDX Broker middleware and we'll go into designs and then wrappers. And so I've just put a little bit of code here already in the header HTML for my global wrapper. And what I'm doing is I'm opening the HTML tag and then I'm opening the head tag. I have a title and then I close the head. So the first snippet, the top one, needs to go in here into the head, right? So after the title, into the head. Shara asks where we should put this if we use WordPress. If you're using WordPress, then you should use a third-party plugin probably. There's a lot of them available. If you are using WordPress though, know that all of your IDX broker pages live on a subdomain, so you might want to put it here as well. And then once we put the first one in, make sure it goes into the head right after the opening of the body tag. This is the actual data layer here. So we'll copy the second piece, and it needs to go right underneath where the body tag opens. So the first thing in the body needs to be that snippet. And then in the footer, you need to make sure you close the body and close the HTML tags, otherwise your page won't work properly. So we'll save those changes, and then we'll come over here to pages, or actually here, let's go back to Tag Manager. And so, okay, I've installed this properly now. So I can put this into preview mode, and then when I go visit an actual page, so if you have Tag Manager in preview mode in the same browser as the page that you have Tag Manager loaded on, then you'll be able to see. So for instance, if I go to this page, this Google Tag Manager, this is the Tag Manager preview mode. So now I know that it's installed on this page correctly, and I can see the different events so far. So I don't have any tags yet, but I can tell that because this preview mode is loaded, that Tag Manager is installed correctly. And so you can get some information in here. There are built-in variables that automatically come through. So like the page path is Bishop's test site, or bishop.idxbroker.com/idx/search/advanced. So the page path, this is what is stored for that. The host name would be bishop.idxbroker.com. And then the event that we're looking at is gtm.load. So the custom event gtm.load just means that Google Tag Manager loaded on this page. And then if we look in the data layer, the only thing that we should have in here is that custom event Tag Manager sends automatically that just says this is loaded, right? So gtm.load means that it has loaded. So if we want to create our first tag, or really I guess we should start with a variable. So we want to set up a user-defined variable, and we'll call this Google Analytics settings. And then we'll go to variable configuration, and we'll make it a constant. And then we'll come over to analytics. You have to have an analytics account set up already. So if we look here, we can see that my UA is UA-128. So we'll go UA-128-789-931-1. So now I have my Google Analytics. Actually, instead of calling it settings, I'll call it UA, Google Analytics UA. You want to be as descriptive as possible with your names so that it's easy to navigate through your account. Once you get a bunch of tags in here, it's kind of difficult to keep them separated. So real quick, let me come back. Michael asks, is this primarily for the subdomain? I was thinking that a tag would be useful on a standard website. Would you want the code in both your website header and the IDX broker account? If you're using WordPress, it really depends on what your content management system is. If you're using WordPress, then you can put it only into WordPress via a plugin, because the way IDX broker pages get loaded in, you're using your WordPress header, and then we're just, especially if you're using Impress by IDX broker, and so you're just using widgets for searches and for save links and stuff like that, so you can just put it into WordPress itself. If you're not using WordPress, it kind of just varies depending on what type of site you have. So it's kind of a hard question to answer. Charlie asked if this recording was going to be available. Yes, this recording will be available. Mary asks if we'll be backing this video up to our YouTube channel. Yes, we will. And we'll send out a follow-up email that has a link to that video as well. Millie says, too technical for this real estate agent. However, you do understand the importance. So yeah, the first part is pretty technical, but the actual making of the tags and stuff isn't. Also though, if it's not something you're very familiar with, it would be a good idea to get your developer partner or whoever your webmaster is to help you with it. And if you're not using WordPress, then you will want to put Michael says he's not using WordPress. So if you are not using WordPress, then you probably do want to put the container and the data layer into IDX Broker middleware into your wrapper, just to make sure that it loads on all pages. If you are using WordPress, there is something that you'll want to do, because if you're not using widgets and you're using a subdomain for your search pages and your results pages, then you'll want to add in analytics your domain name to the non-referral list so that you don't get recurring traffic. So if you don't add your domain to the referral exclusion list, then you'll get traffic from all the traffic on your IDX broker pages will show up as referrals, rather than, and it'll be two sessions. So it'll be the original session when they land on your website, and then once they perform a search and get to a results page, that'll be a second session. Unless you add your domain to the referral exclusion list, then it'll just be one session with multiple page views. Chara says, when using an agent evolution theme, Impress wrappers have their own script section. This is true, yes they do. So you can put it into that section as well. But if you're using an agent evolution theme, or no, that's exactly where it should go. It should go into the equity theme script section. So yes, you are correct. That is where it should go. not the whole head. An individual wrapper would put it on that only page. Yeah, unless, well, in this case, I was using the global wrapper. So under wrappers, I'm using the global wrapper. So that goes on every IDX broker generated page. If you're talking about specifically individual pages within your website, then yeah, you can control what pages you want it to load. Yes. So in the equity head, if you want it to be on all pages, which ideally you would want it to be on all pages, you would put it into the equity head. Yes. And then Michael says Google tags can be used for all sorts of things on websites. Is the tags for IDX broker something specific that you will review? I'm not actually going over tags for IDX Broker specifically. Instead, I'm just covering how to use Tag Manager with IDX Broker. So if we come back here, now that I have this Google Analytics UA as a constant, I can create a tag, and this will just be Analytics, Google Analytics, and then choose a tag type, and I'll choose Google Analytics Universal Analytics, and I want it to be a page view. And so you can either use, we just made that constant, you can either create a new variable, which allows you to control more settings for analytics. So let me go get that UA back, actually. I just need to copy that value out of the variable. All right, so we'll call it Google Analytics. We'll go to tag configuration. We'll choose Universal Analytics, and then we want to track page views. We'll create a new variable for Google Analytics settings. The tracking ID I just copied. Cookie domain auto fields to set. Anonymize IP. So anonymize IP. So this is for like the GDPR thing. Set this to true just so that you know that you're covering all your bases. If there's anything else in here that you might want to do, like e-commerce, enable enhanced e-commerce, but you might not want to. You probably do want to cross domain tracking, and then auto link domains would be true, and then leave the other ones as false. Just those are just potential things that you might want to set, and then we'll call this Google Analytics settings, and then we'll save that. And then for triggering, we'll just use a default trigger for this one because I want to be able to see all traffic on all pages. So I'll set that trigger for all pages. So if any page loads on my website, I want to track that page view. So we'll save that, and then we'll refresh the preview mode, and then come back here. And if we look, when we refresh, we should have a tag that fires. So one tag fired on this page, and that's Google Analytics, and it fired with all of this information. So this is the tracking ID that it got sent to. So if we go look in Analytics now and we go to real time, we should see that we have someone on that page. And I have one visitor on the site right now, and I am in Eugene, Oregon. So now I know that that tag is working properly. So another tag that we could implement that is a little bit more tricky would be if we inspect this button, the search button, we see that the button has a ID of IDX form submit. So I'm going to copy that and come over here, and we'll create a new tag, and we'll say form submission and tag configuration. And this is going to be a Universal Analytics tag again, but this time I want to track an event, and I want the category to be form submission, action being search, and then label being, it can be whatever you want it to be, but I'll just make it search as well. We'll use the GA settings variable that we just set, and then under triggering, we'll create a new trigger, and this is going to be a search button click. And so I want a click on all elements, but I'm going to change it from all clicks to some clicks. And I want choose a built-in variable. So I want the click ID, because we just looked and saw that that click ID has a specific ID. So we'll set it where the click ID is equal to IDX form submit. So that this trigger should only fire when that specific button gets clicked. And so we'll save this, and we'll save the form submission tag that we just made. So now we have two tags, one for Google Analytics, this one fires on all pages, and then we have a form submission which we just set to only fire on some clicks on a page. We will refresh the preview, and then we can come back over to this page. I'll close the inspector, come back to tags, and refresh. So now we see that we have two tags, right? One tag is fired on this page already, which is the page view tag we made originally. And then a tag not fired on this page so far yet is the form submission. So if I just search, I wonder if I can just search without putting any criteria in. If I just hit search, so now we've got the form submission tag, which we only saw it for just a split second because when the new page loads, there isn't a form that just got submitted on this page. But if we come over to analytics, we should see that we have an event here. So we did get one event, which is a form submission with the event action of search, and the label was also search, which we just set up in Tag Manager. And then another example of a tag that would probably be pretty useful would be like Facebook pixel. And then for the tag configuration, we would want it to be a custom HTML because we're just going to copy and paste the Facebook pixel. So let's go get Facebook pixel example code. So under implementation, I should be able to find, so this is an example of Facebook pixel, right? So we'll copy all of this, which if you're using a Facebook pixel, obviously you wouldn't get it from here. You would go into your business manager account, your ads manager account, and then under pixels, it'll have a pixel that's specific to you. But the tag that you want, again, we'll just start over with the Facebook pixel. We'll discard this. So we want to create a new tag. We'll call it Facebook pixel. And then tag configuration, this one will be custom HTML. And then we will paste that code here. And then for triggering, we want the pixel to fire on all pages. So we'll just use the default all pages again. And then we will save that. And so now if we refresh the preview mode and come back here, but go back to the original page that we were on, we should see Facebook pixel fired once and Google Analytics fired once. So we'll get traffic in Facebook and we'll get traffic in Google Analytics. And then the form submission only fires if you watch, once I click this search, Facebook form submission fired. And so now we should have a second event in real time if we refresh this. So yeah, there's a second event that just fired. And then for overview, there should only be one user because it's still the same user, but you can see the multiple page views in the real-time report. So that's just a couple examples of tags in Tag Manager, how to create them, how to use the preview, Google Tag Manager preview to test them, and then also use Google Analytics to verify in real time that your tags are firing properly. I could show you another example of how to do filtering on, like say for example, Google Analytics. So if we come back here and we don't want that tag to fire on this page, we don't want the analytics tag to fire on this page, then we could come into the triggering section and we can add an exception and we'll create a new trigger. So, and then this will be a page view, but some page views instead of all page views. And this one we'll want to be page path is equal to that value that I just copied out of there, which is IDX/search/advanced, which we can see here that the page path that is equal to /IDX/search/advanced. So we set the page path equal to /IDX/search/advanced and save that. And so now instead of the Google Analytics firing on every single page, it'll only fire on, or it'll fire on all pages except for that advanced search page. So we'll save this and then refresh preview mode. And if we come back over here to tags and refresh this page, we should get a Facebook pixel tag that fires, but we don't get the Google Analytics tag because we're only on this page. But if I click the search tag will still fire, and then when we land on this page, the Google Analytics tag will fire as well. So Matt asked, how do you track when someone clicks on a showcase property? So would that be like one of these as a search result here? Or are you building a specific property and you have one page for one property? I'm not exactly sure what you mean by showcase property. Is that like a featured listing? Like from a widget. So someone searches from a widget and lands on a results page and then clicks into the property. If you're tracking all pages on your site, you would use Tag Manager with a Google Analytics, something like this. You wouldn't have any exceptions here. So we could want to edit this and I would remove this exception. So you want to track all pages, right? And so Tag Manager will fire tags on every page that you're on. And so then instead of using, you wouldn't find in Tag Manager where that is. Instead, you would come to Analytics and under Behavior, Site Content, and then all pages. So today is the 13th. I don't know. It doesn't always show up in these reports in real time. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So you would find that information here. So like for this results page, IDX details listing A389. So this is the results page, but not actually this page, even though we fired the analytics tag here. So that hasn't shown up in the analytics report just yet, but it might be in the real-time report. There it is. Okay, so this, once you have the tracking for all pages set up, then you can come into this site content, all pages report under behavior and analytics, and this is the traffic to that specific listing. So I'm on this page now, 708-125 Wingfield Road. with the IDX details listing A389/201800322-708-125 Wingfield Road. And then in analytics, you can see this here. So that's how I know that I'm on this specific page. And then also, if you're just on the all pages report, there's a search bar right here. So you can search for, let's say, for example, come back and we'll click on a different one, Hill Creek Road. So then I could search in analytics for Hill Creek Road, but it hasn't shown up yet because it's not in real time in these reports, but it's probably here. If you come to content under the real-time report, Hill Creek Road. So 697-955 Hill Creek Road, and that's because I'm currently on that page. Okay, yeah, so if we come into what's the real-time report is useful for seeing who's on what page right now. The behavior report with the site content and then all pages, this is more useful here because if I come back to today and I can see these, now I can come here and add a secondary dimension of source medium. And I can tell that all of this traffic came from direct, right? But if someone had searched and landed on a page, then this would say Google Organic. Or if someone had clicked on an ad in Google Ads, it would say Google CPC. Michael asks, does this allow for more detailed information than what is currently available in Google Analytics? This is the information that's available in Google Analytics. Tag Manager allows you to make tags for all sorts of third parties. So if we come in here and we make a new tag configuration, so there's a bunch of different ones that you can use. So you can use like Google Analytics, Universal Analytics, Google Ads conversion tracking, remarketing to build remarketing lists so you can show ads in Google Ads to people who have already visited your site. Floodlight counter, floodlight sales, conversion linker. If you're using Google Ads, it might be useful. Google Optimize allows you to do A/B testing easily, and you can link that with your analytics via Tag Manager. You can put your own custom HTML in here. So for example, we use a custom HTML tag to implement the Facebook pixel, or if you want to use a Twitter pixel, or if you have another third party. So for example, if you're using like software that allows you to see where clicks on your pages are, for instance, one example is Crazy Egg, you can use this custom HTML tag to implement it there. And then there's a bunch of actually Crazy Egg is fully supported, so there's a tag already set up for that. So if you're using, you just put your account number in and then it already knows how to do that. And then there's all of these other third party that are fully supported automatically out of the box. So LinkedIn, Marin software, optimized conversion tag, like there's all sorts of stuff. It's not just for using Google Analytics. Google Analytics is just the most simple example and typically one of the biggest uses because you can use Tag Manager to set custom events for form submissions, right? So a form submission would be, you want to know how many people searched, or another good one would be sign up, schedule a showing, right? So we could also, if we inspect this schedule a showing button, and then we see that it has an ID of IDX-schedule showing, we'll copy that ID. Then we can come into Tag Manager and we'll create a new tag called schedule showing. And then tag configuration, this will be another Universal Analytics tag. It's going to be an event, and this one's going to be schedule showing. Action will be button click. And then label, we could even make the page path or the page URL so you know exactly what page it came from, which is, if you use the page URL, that'll be useful because the address is in the page URL for each listing. And then for the trigger, we'll come down here and we'll create a new trigger for schedule a showing. And then this is going to be a click event, but we're going to change it from all clicks to some clicks. And it's going to be click ID is equal to the ID we just copied. So IDX-schedule showing. And then we'll save this, and we will save this. I forgot to set the Google Analytics settings variable down here, so it was giving me an error because I hadn't done that. And so I will save this again, and then we'll refresh preview mode, and then we'll refresh this page as well. Dan, I'll cover that too just after this. So this is an example of a funnel, right? So the first step in this funnel would be schedule showing. So we got the schedule showing button just fired, and if we come into analytics and go to that real time events, we'll see someone click the schedule showing. So that's coming through. And then if we come back here, there's a send message. So we'll inspect the send message, and this is IDX submit button is the ID. So we'll copy that, and then we will come back to Tag Manager, create a new tag, and we'll call this showing scheduled, because this is someone who's actually sending a message to confirm a scheduled showing. So this is another Universal Analytics tag, and it's also going to be an event, and this one's going to be showing scheduled. For the category, action would be form submit, And the label, again, I'm going to go with page URL. And then the trigger is going to be a new trigger, and we'll call this showing scheduled trigger. And then again, it's going to be a click, and then it'll be a some clicks, not all clicks, because we don't want to track every single click on the page. We want the click ID to be equal to that button, and then we'll save this. Again, I forgot to set the Google Analytics settings, so we'll set that there, and then we'll refresh this again. And if we come back to this page and refresh, so now we have the showing scheduled, and then we'll fill this information out. Hopefully it'll let me submit without putting any more information in there. So if I click send message, now we have the showing scheduled. And if we come back over here, so now I have a showing scheduled event. And then if we come down to behavior, there's this events report and then top events. And so if we change this to today, hopefully those events show up in this report. So I have a form submission and a schedule showing, but I don't have the showing scheduled yet. So we could even change this form submission action. So if we wanted to change the way that that form submission comes through and change it to search form submission, we could come here and change this category to search, home search, or call it advanced search, because that's what this is. Would probably make more sense. And then save that, refresh it. And then if we come back here and go all the way back to the very first page we were on, this one, then we want to refresh this. So the tag is still called form submission. Actually, let me go change that just because it'll make more sense. So if we change the name here, so we changed the category to advanced search. We should change the name of the tag too, so it makes sense. And then save it here. And then refresh this. And then come back, refresh. And so now we have another tag. It's the same tag, but it's no longer called form submission. Now it's called advanced search. So if I click search here, advanced search fires. And then if we come to analytics, it won't show up in that report just yet, but if we come back to events in the real-time report, then we'll have an advanced search event here. So Dan, I just covered that, how to track the schedule showing of someone who actually submitted their information. For adding Google Ads to GTM, I can show you what that tag looks like. We'll just call this Google Ads. And then the tag configuration would be Google Ads conversion tracking. And so this stuff you have to get out of your Google Ads account. You create a new conversion in Google Ads, and then it'll give you the information that you need in order to fill this stuff out. I don't have a test ads account that I can do that with right now, but I can get the links together on how to do that and send it over with a follow-up email for this webinar, if that would be helpful. So triggering, Dan also brought up another good point. So I'm triggering the event on the submit button, but what if they forgot a required field? So if they forgot a required field, the event will still fire. There are other ways to trigger that rather than using just the button click. So there's actually a new trigger. If we come in here to create a new trigger, which I've had problems with this one in the past, I feel that using the button itself is more reliable than using this form submission, but you can use a form submission trigger, and then if you use the check validation, then you can account to make sure that the form has been fully filled out and the form did get submitted. You can also fire an event on the page that they arrive on after they have submitted the form. So then you can just fire a custom event. There is more difficult and intricate ways to use Tag Manager, so we're not even covering how to use the data layer at all, but if you have an event and you have access to your code, then you can push an event into the data layer and then set a trigger to look for that event in the data layer. But that's way more nitty-gritty than I planned on getting today. That's a more of an advanced use scenario. So I feel like we've actually covered a lot. We really covered more than I initially intended to. If you do have any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to support@idxbroker.com. And also we'll be putting together a follow-up email, and I can throw in links on how to add Google Ads conversion tracking via Tag Manager as well. And so I can actually step back over here to the PowerPoint, and there I do have a couple useful links in here. Mozilla's got a really good blog post on Intro to Tag Manager, which is basically kind of what we just covered, how to create an account, why you would want to use it, pros and cons, and then step-by-step instructions on how to create some tags and those kinds of things. And this is really useful. It's fairly recent. I think it's from earlier this year. I went through it and read through it. It is still accurate. So if you had trouble following along in the video and you wanted some step-by-step instructions that you could follow in your own time, this is a really good resource. Bao's actually throwing it into the chat box right now. The other useful links that I had is Google Tag Manager. Google has its own documentation on how to set up and install their stuff, and they also have a quick start guide. And all three of those links are going into the chat box right now, and we will also include that in the follow-up email as well. So Matt asked, when are we doing the CSS webinar for IDX users? Bao is actually answering that one in the chat box right now. Fareed asks, can we get help on a separate project that relates to GCP and G Suites? I'm not sure what GCP is. I know what G Suites is. Honestly, I don't know the answer to that question. You can always reach out to support, and we will provide as much help as we possibly can. Oh, Google Cloud Platform. I'm not sure. It depends on what you're using Google Cloud Platform for and how it integrates with IDX Broker. Were there any other questions? Corinne says, support docs all say to put tracking on thank you pages. That conversion tracking goes on thank you pages, definitely. And that's a different implementation than using Tag Manager. There's a lot of different ways to do this correctly. Tag Manager is just one way to implement your tracking strategy on your website. You can also use it just using Universal Analytics, gtag.js. There isn't a right or a wrong way so long as it works properly, right? All right, so if there are no more questions, I'm going to go ahead and close it down. Thank you all very much for your time today, and have a great rest of your week.